Black culture. Blackety black culture.
The blackest.
Yeah, man. Like, what does that even mean? What does black even mean? You know, when I think about black culture, I think music, like we were talking about before. I think
Yeah.
about food. I think about how we're perceived. But then I also think about what does that mean if somebody doesn't conform to that stuff? And what does that mean for identity as well? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm thinking about. But yeah, what's your thoughts on the whole black culture thing?
I don't know, man. I just think, what is black culture? I used to, when we were young and we were growing up, there's a thing of, you're acting black. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we all knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Like, now we can't really say that.
But wasn't that just you're acting urban?
Urban is just another word for black. They're gonna tell you it's different. Urban was just
Yeah.
it's just a cool way to say black in around black people without offending no black.
Yeah. But obviously there were connotations with that. So obviously it came down to the way you dressed, where maybe you lived, how much money you probably made. You probably came from a single home family, you know.
Yeah.
There's all these different things that urban or black meant. But like, I'm just thinking, why were we given that sort of like title or those stereotypes?
No, I think those are the stereotypes that want to be perpetuated. They were the ones that they wanted to push out, and we were willing to accept it. We were willing to say that that's what we understood. So I think for me, growing up in East London, a big thing was how we spoke. Do you know what I mean? Because in East London, man, are Cockney. You all right, London? You all right? Like, you understand? That's how man talk. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
Oh my days! Yeah.
you had them man that talk like that, and
Of
then
course.
obviously us man talk.
Yeah.
How us man talk. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course.
And so if a white person started to speak using the same lingo, at first you say, "No, you're trying to act black," but actually, we all talk like that
Yeah, of course.
because that was the lingo. That was how we all spoke.
Yeah.
So how else would you speak? Do you know what I mean? I mean, there were people that still had their whole Cockney thing going on. Do you know what I mean? Apples and pears and stairs and
Yeah,
all of them things there. But
Yeah.
most man talked. Do you know what I mean? And then, we had how, like you said, how you dressed. Your trousers down and showing your boxers and, do you know what I mean? And put your hands in your trousers and graffiti and, these type of things. But we accepted it. And a lot of it then portrayed in the music. And because it portrayed in the music, we then thought we had to live it out in real life.
But I think we accepted it because it seemed cool at the time.
It was cool.
And why was it cool? It's almost like maybe because for the majority of people that were enacting those stereotypes, they generated a certain vibe, a certain energy, something different and unique that Britain hadn't necessarily seen before, And so it came into a situation where other people were acting black. You had words like wigger, white person acting like a black person, even though it's coming from a certain term. So for me, it almost comes down to vibe, what that created as well. But if I'm thinking about an individual like myself, I don't speak black, so to speak.
But
I hate saying that.
Was that ever a problem for you though? Did you
No.
ever feel that black people looked at you like you were acting white?
No, not even at all. See, the thing is with me, the way I think is like, oh, this is how I am. And that's it. I've never felt like, oh, I needed to conform whatever it is. I was one of those people at school where I hopped around. I was never in one group. So with the black guys, with the Asian guys, or sometimes with the white guys or whatever. I just went where my energy felt it needed to be. But I also felt like, I don't know, it makes you feel unique, so to speak. Because obviously when you're playing rugby and stuff, you're the token black guy, you notice the difference, but it does, for me personally, it didn't bother me. But I know for some people who grew up in a more urban environment, if you want to call it that, and I hate saying that, they may feel a certain way because they want to stick to that black culture. Does that make sense? They want to make sure they're being true to themselves, whatever that means, if that makes sense. Whether they're really being authentic to themselves or whether they're just being true to the idea of what black culture looks like.
But did you go to a good school though? Did you go to a nice
When you say
metropolitan,
good,
well educated, they got good grades?
I don't know by then. I went to a Jesuit school.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it was a decent school, yeah. It was a state school.
Yeah, state school,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I just think to myself, in my school,
Yeah.
black people that spoke like you do, used to get bullied.
Yeah, I can tell you now, I'd never get bullied.
No, I'm not saying that you did. I'm just saying that in my school, like,
Yeah.
you had to talk like us. You
I
had
see,
to be
I
like
see.
us.
But the thing is,
Because
I had
if he
people.
wasn't,
But we had people who spoke like other people anyway. It's not like everyone spoke like me. It definitely wasn't like that at all. It's just I speak the way I speak. I think what obviously helped me is the fact that I was good at sports. So that helped with certain things and everything else. But there weren't lots of people who necessarily spoke like me.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. There were different sorts of groups. It was varied in that sense.
Yeah.
But I never felt pressured to have to speak that way.
yeah, I think
And it doesn't even suit me anyway.
I think like you said, it's different. Like my school
Yeah.
was bad breed. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like it was terrible. Like I don't even know how I ended up there. I'm not from that world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you, I
But
hear you.
I'm in there now.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
my school, like we didn't have books. Teacher would photocopy the pages that we're reading. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because them man rip up all the books. Do you understand? Like man are smoking in the toilets, so you can't
Yeah,
even
of
go
course.
toilet. Do you know what I mean?
But I feel like that's in most schools though.
But I feel like in my school, it was so. You might say most schools. The pass rate in my school before my year
Yeah.
of 5 A to C's
Yeah.
was 4%.
Okay, that's bad.
So when I tell you, it's a different level.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the bottom two sets in my school, they didn't do certain classes. They were taught. They went and did electrician and plumbing because the school knew you're not going to further education.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're going to teach you a trade. That's the type of school I went to. Do you understand?
How does that link back to the black culture thing?
Everybody acted black in my school.
I see.
Because
So
what we could perceive to be black.
So does that
everybody used the
insinuate-
lingo. Everybody dressed in you had to dress in a certain way. You know what I mean. You had to speak in like if you taught even a little bit posh. I mean, there were the white brothers that taught posh, and they could get away with it because they were smart and they would help you with your homework and stuff like that. So you give them a blight. Do you know what I mean? But they better help you with your homework. You know what I mean?
course.
Otherwise, well, go on.
They know what time it is.
You understand?
Yeah.
So them man could get a blight. Do you know what I mean? And they'll be useful. Do you see what I'm saying? But the majority, if we didn't talk in, if you wasn't tough, man are taking your lunch money. You understand? So you had to.
yeah.
There was no way. It's jungle. Like I'm telling you, it was the jungle. Like you're not surviving on a. I just want to be myself. Listen, my brother,
Yeah.
these are the rules.
Yeah, I think that was a very sort of like thrilling story. You know, it's very dramatic and everything else.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to me because I can't relate to it.
No, of course not.
But obviously, you're telling me your story and side of things. All I can say to that is, where does that stem from? You know, and I feel like you were kind of insinuating as well that was negative. Black culture in that sense was negative.
No, that they took the negative parts of it. Do you know what I
Okay,
mean? So there was swagger. There was being able to talk, be able to charm. These are the things that I used to when I then became into the bank and I started. The reason I got the job as a financial advisor was because I had swagger, because I could talk, because I knew how to mingle and be with people. These are the things that you learn.
Of course.
You're quick-witted. When you're getting bullied, when men are cussing you every single day,
You have to be
you're
quick.
going to have to be quick-witted. You're going to have to be able to come out with a reply. These are things that man learn in the playground. Do you know what I mean? But now man uses in the workplace.
Of course.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You're quick
yeah.
on your feet. So it doesn't have to be negative, but what we were pushing out, what we were told, what we were portraying were the negative sides. And so what we were saying to ourselves, we was actually putting ourselves down. We're saying we're not going to be smart because we're being black. But when we got older and we started,
That's very sad. Sorry to interrupt. That's very sad because to me, that doesn't define black. If we're thinking about statistically, I can see why that does happen. Because obviously you've got a high number of people come into this country, yeah? And, you know, they may be from West African backgrounds, West Indian or whatever it is. And they're just trying to set themselves up. And already they're at -1, you know? So with that being at -1, and if we're, again, looking at Maslow's hierarchy as an example, the foundations are not necessarily there to then start thinking about, you know, relationships, growth, mental stuff and everything else in order to self-actualize or create that level of excellence. Unless you have strong will and certain morals and disciplines in place, it's very hard for you to push through. So, for example, with you, you had that intelligence to know, okay, I may be adaptable, in different environments and everything else, but I know I'm going to make a success of myself regardless. This is just a little phase that I'm going through or whatever it is. Whereas some people took that to heart and took that seriously and say, this is my culture, this is what it is, but they're paying for the consequences of what it is today.
No, definitely.
For whatever reason, But we're dealt the hand we're dealt with based on the circumstances that we have. And for a lot of people within a black demographic, that's what they're experiencing if you're looking at the numbers. But that's not everyone's story.
Yeah.
That's not everyone's story. So when I'm thinking about black culture, it's hard for me to define what that is. It's a mix of many things. It's a mix of heritage. It's thinking about obviously Africa and West India as a generalization. It's thinking about sort of music as we stated before. It's thinking about how we dress. It's thinking about just all those different things that affect culture in general.
Yeah.
And there's something that unites us to make us feel black. And obviously color is an important thing as well. But then I think about cultures within the culture, like West African culture or the African diaspora or, West Indians who are British or just West Indians in general, and how there are disparities within that culture as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when we talk about culture, I feel like it's come full circle. Like when I was younger, I pretended I was Caribbean.
Really?
I was lighter skinned. I used to hang in Brixton a lot because my cousin was in Brixton. I used to go down there a lot. And it wasn't cool to be African. Like, now we got Afro beats, we got this, we got that.
Now it's cool to be African.
Do you know what I mean? Now it's cool to be African. Like, do you know what I mean? Now even Caribbean people will say they're African and they watch Nollywood and it's not a problem. And that's amazing that we're now being more accepting and the culture's more being taken more serious. Do you know what I mean? And that's great. Well, what I'm saying is that what culture changes and evolves. And I feel like what we need to do is really understand where we come from. I see things like, in coming from a Nigerian background, we have very much respect for our elders. And I see that being diminished and being put down. I feel like we don't want to honor our elders, those that have come before anymore, because we're so independent, we're so individual that we don't need anyone. We feel like we're self-made. Like we just born ourselves and we just clothed ourselves and fed ourselves to a certain age and forget whoever came or whoever was before. We're here now and it's our thing. And I feel these are the things that, Western culture is taking over. I remember when you're young, your white mates can say certain things to their parents that you can't say. Tell mum F off, shut up.
Can you imagine?
Where? Where will I sleep? I'm in hospital.
On the floor, yeah.
I'm in hospital.
In a hospital bed.
You know them ones you get brave and you say, yo, mum, if you beat me, I'm going to call. My mum say, cool.
Call them.
Before they get here, you're finished.
Yeah, exactly.
You're finished.
So it's fine.
So,
they fulfilled their prophecy.
And so these are the type of things that respect and honouring our parents. Our parents had a big influence in our lives.
Of course
People say to me, man, you're here, like, you grew up in this area. My mum was on me. My dad was on me to get this education. Talk about uni from how long, and I didn't want to go uni, but I had to. These parents will feel like they failed in life if I didn't go. Those are the type of pressures that other people might not have, and maybe I could have been an entrepreneur sooner if I didn't have that pressure to go to uni and I just went straight into the workplace at 16. Here we are.
We don't know. Culture's an interesting one because it's like, how important is culture? And I think there's a scale to it. I think culture is important when we're thinking about identity, because as individuals, we like to connect. We like to feel like we belong, so without it, we feel very lost. And, there are a lot of people who say, for example, British people don't necessarily have a culture. Some may even say those from the Caribbean islands lack culture compared to sort of African sort of identity and everything else. And I've said it in front of the camera now.
I just had to cough for that one.
But this is not coming from me. This is coming from them.
No, please clarify that.
Yeah. We have to clarify.
I don't want no problems.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's definitely not me. But the point being made here is that there must be some level of importance of it, because for you to say there is a lack of means that you have some sort of value against it. And the value is identity, I think, and that connection. Because when you do say, you would never say this, but when you see another black brother or sister, there is an identification or connection that you may have with them already.
Yeah.
Now, some of them may act funny because they're
course.
just like, I'm or whatever. I don't need to be part of this culture. And But in other situations, it allows things to gel very quickly. You know, when thinking about obviously diversity and everything else, one thing that helps sort of like with productivity and everything else is the fact that you have biculturals within an environment. And all that really means is I'm Black British.
Yeah.
So that means I have a connection. Well, I'm Ghanaian British, so to speak. Yeah. So I have a connection with Britain and England. I have a connection with Ghana. I have a connection with other West Africans. I have a connection with Black people in general. I even have a connection with those people who are similar to the British people, so the West. So it allows me to widen my scope.
Yeah.
So I have this core culture, but I can identify because I can identify with other cultures as well. And for me, that's what culture does, you know. So when we're thinking about Black culture, it's thinking, how do you identify with what Black culture is, whatever that means to you?
No, I hear you. And I feel like it's forever progressing, it's
Yeah.
forever moving, it's forever changing, it's evolving.
Of course.
As we evolve, as we become more educated and learn new things, we add to it, and it's a melting pot. And you continue to add, and you taste, this tastes nice, or you taste it at certain times and it's bitter, and you think, what do I need to change?
Of course.
What do we need to change? And I feel like a lot of the time, we haven't spoke about it, but a lot of the time we take influences from American culture, the Black American experience.
Yeah.
That's not even ours.
It's not ours.
But we take it. We want to be, you know what I mean, afraid of the police, like they're shooting us up and down, but they're not.
But it says something about how lost we have been about our own British Black culture, if that makes sense. But I feel like, and this is a question I was thinking of whilst you were speaking, what does Black culture look like now, at least for our generation? You know, I feel like there's a movement towards Black businesses. That's part of the culture now.
Big.
I feel like there's a movement towards Black excellence, and that comes down to sort of like education,
Yeah.
PhDs, inventions, all of that
Yes.
kind of stuff. I think there is sort of like a movement towards Black innovation.
Yeah.
It's around excellence. I feel
Yeah.
like that's a real sort of like
Yeah.
beaming thing
Yeah.
when it comes to Black culture at the moment.
I agree, and I look at probably one of my favorites, like Stormzy, and I feel like one thing about Stormzy is I feel like me and you, for example,
Yeah.
a Stormzy can relate to both of us just the same.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's got that street element
Yeah.
that I grew up with, that I recognize, and when he raps or when he does his thing, I'm like, yes,
It's mad.
he comes
Yeah.
from where I come from. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? He talks
yeah.
about what I. But at the same time, he can do what he's doing in Cambridge and do what he's doing with his books. And
Yeah.
do you understand?
Yeah.
He made being intelligent cool. Now they said that the number of people applying to Cambridge has increased. The number of Black
Because
people
of
because
the Stormzy effect.
of that scholarship.
Yeah.
Because actually made it. No, we can go here.
Yeah.
We can be here. He's made that possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Coming from where he said, no, I'm not going to go to Cambridge, but I'm going to make sure some people
Yeah.
that come from where I come from, I'm not going to get all this money and just keep it to myself.
Yeah.
And that's an example of Black excellence.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that there's levels to Black excellence. You can be excellent as an individual, but to me, when you're really excellent, it's when you're now shaping a community, when you're not
Yes.
actually
You're changing the culture.
changing the culture.
Yeah.
And I feel like for me, that's something so important. And some people say, oh man, you know, you're selfless, like you think about others. But I feel like how do I count my achievements
Of course.
if I'm winning by myself? And so how do I go forward if my people are not, if I don't see my people going forward?
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about culture and moving it forward, it's that we share it.
Yeah, yeah.
It means different things to different people, but let's share our experiences and learn from one another and make that a better experience. So let's make sure we are giving our children something to be proud of.
And you know what? That struck a nerve with me, like heavily. Goosebumps even. Like in my mind, I'm thinking the reason why that's happening more and more is because of two things in my mind. Number one, people are not scared to be excellent. And so they're creating sort of facilitators and leaders within society that other people can look to. And number two, because of that excellence, that develops a high level of trust, because we weren't very trusting within our cultures to say that I'm looking to follow somebody who's within the Black community or whatever it is. Because we're more trusting of that, because of those people who are not scared to make that first step and bring other people in, that has a ripple effect. And so Black culture for me right now is about dominance.
Yeah.
That's what I see. Dominance, collaborative dominance, you know,
Yeah.
not to wipe out another culture, whatever it is, but to really sort of like press our mark and say, look, we're as good as you too. We don't have to listen to all of these statistics. We can redefine what the culture looks like.
Exactly.
You know, So yeah, it's cool to be black right now.
It's
You know?
definitely cool to be black.
Yeah, it really is. But how long is that gonna last?
I feel like
We don't know.
I feel like it's as long as we want it to.
Yeah, of course.
As long as we keep evolving, as long as we keep changing, as long as we keep pushing the narrative that we want. And
Yeah.
that's the difference now.
Yeah.
Before we were told how we were slaves, before
Yeah.
we were told how we came on ships, before we were told that we single parent households and da. That's what we read in sociology books and so forth.
Yeah.
We're saying forget all that.
Yeah, yeah.
We're saying now we're doctors, we're scientists, we're lawyers, and we were before.
Yeah.
But now we're letting you know
Yeah,
that
you
we
were
know
let-
we are. We know now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
now with social media, it allows us to create platforms
Mm-hmm.
where people can come and see. Like I told people the other day, like the fact I'm going on Channel 4 is not big because I'm going on Channel 4.
Mm.
For me, the big thing about me going on Channel 4 is the fact I'm going onto the television and I'm not a sports star or a rapper or a musician.
Yeah.
So now people are going to grow up and they're going to see, right, if I'm good at what I do, I can be famous or I can get on television or I can, do you understand? I don't have to follow the common routes of entertainment.
Yeah,
Because we've been
yeah.
entertaining people for a long time.
Yeah.
And actually we can do more than that.
Yeah, of course. I think people just need to see more examples.
Exactly.
You know? And, you know, we just need to continue doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know? I don't have any more thoughts. There's probably more things to say, but
There's
I
always
think you
more to
said it
say.
all, man.
Yeah, we're good, man.
Cool. We'll leave it at that.